Welcome to This Week in Virginia, and I'm delighted to welcome a guest that I have not known for a long time, but I have seen him in action at the General Assembly of Virginia, and we want to talk about that. My guest is Chad Gill, who, as I have learned, has always loved fixing things from growing up on a farm, and so after his years at VMI and what he got there in mechanical engineering, and doing a variety of other jobs. And then in 2002, he left it all to found Concreate, a very special company that I want him to talk a little bit about that company and tell us about it too. But really, Chad, to talk about what you experienced at the General Assembly of Virginia just yesterday. You were in the Senate General Laws Committee, a committee that had a variety of bills. And tell our viewers, people around the Commonwealth, most of whom have never had the experience that you had yesterday. Tell us about it.
So it was great. It's a good experience, and I think coming out of VMI, our thing is that citizen soldiers. That's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to do things. We're supposed to participate. My parents had a firm belief that if you didn't vote, you couldn't complain about it, and so that was something driven into us. So yesterday, at the General Assembly, it was interesting to sit in a Senate committee meeting and be able to hear the vast array of things that come across one committee of general laws. We heard everything from people looking for protections for religious groups, to the renaming of offices, to something like we were dealing with trying to get control over pay when paid, and pay if paid contract clauses. So was it long? Yes, it's definitely long. Is it something that you would watch and try to stay awake in if you weren't actively engaged in your particular bill? Absolutely. But is it necessary? Is it good to kind of see what grinds through the government machine? Oh, 100%. And try to see the effectiveness. You can in the discussions you can see senators who are changing their minds, definitely listening. They give an audience. So it's not, I definitely didn't leave with the idea of having not been heard or not understood.
One of the senators on another bill was even talking about the need to be physically present. And they were discussing the ability for localities, local governments to be virtual. And he was saying that sometimes when I'm sitting in a committee and talking with someone, it really changes my mind. So and he said that's why last year the Senate of Virginia met in the Science Museum of Virginia, and that we were at least able to rub shoulders some with each other, or keep a little bit of distance.
I thought that was that was Senator Stewart, I believe, from the Northern
Yes.
Neck. So you would think if anybody had something to gain from virtual meetings, it would have been him. His drive is longer and involves a tunnel and a bridge. But I think he's absolutely right. And I can't remember who it was, if it was Mike Tyson or somebody, said the problem with the world today is Facebook's allowed you to say things without getting punched in the face. And I think what the senator was referencing is a similar thing, in the idea that I don't think there's a lot of punching going on in Senate committee meetings, but to stand in front of somebody, was it 70 or 80% of communication is through body language. And as great as virtual meetings are, we're meeting virtually now, it still is important to be in person and in place. And I think he had a great point about it. And, I would hate to see that our government becomes something along the lines of a Facebook forum.
Yes, and I'm so glad that our General Assembly meets the way it does. And it's, the other side of the Potomac, the national government, you have a bell ring and you have a certain length of time to go into the chamber and cast your vote, and that's it. And not having as much face-to-face debate and discussion as they have. I'm not sure if it was when you were there or if it happened even after that, but you stayed almost to the end. But there was even a bill brought up pertaining to lobbyists to make sure that anything that they hand out around to a legislator, that it has information contact information on it. And I would have thought that's just good practice, and everyone does that. Some of the handouts you had all kinds of names and phone numbers and emails on it that people would have. But evidently some people drop off some papers at times, oppose this bill or support that bill and give some points, but they wonder who brought that by? Where did I get it from?
Yeah, it's funny, and I think that I was there for that, and they were trying to make sure that you weren't just getting papered with false information.
Right.
And I think that's a good idea. And it was something that I also noticed yesterday was, when we were doing our bill, we were coming up and saying, what was really important and stuff like that. And senators had questions pertaining to it. There was a mechanics lien question. There was, the other senator knew all about retainage and the delays in this. So I was pleasantly surprised to find out that it wasn't one of these, you got to read it, you got to pass it to find out what's in it situations. These guys, they and girls, they know the bill. They know the information that's in it. And I would say before I walked in that room, I wasn't sure that I believed that. Now I was pretty impressed. These guys are deep in knowledge with what they're doing.
I think it's fortunate that every one of the committees in the Senate and the committees in the House have some members that are thoroughly interested and informed on the issue. And it's hard for them to be informed about all issues, but if they have some of their colleagues who ask the questions or make the statements, and as you saw the ebb and flow of all the different bills, sometimes there were different people speaking on some of them and others speaking on other ones. But say something too, if you will, Chad, about a bit more about the physical presence, because there is an option. Hopefully people know about it. If not, we're going to help spread the word that they can testify virtually. They can be in the sign up and be in a virtual testimony. In the House of Delegates, that's even in the subcommittees. You can testify subcommittee. In the Senate, unless it gets changed, it looks like it's only in the full committees, and we were in a full committee of Senate General Laws. But in subcommittees, and the House has many more subcommittees, I guess, because they have 100 members and they get more bills introduced, and so they run more bills through subcommittees than the Senate tends to do. But say something about virtual testimony and in-person testimony.
I think what I saw yesterday was that it sounds a little bit hypocritical to say that the Senate should be meeting in person, and I think that's and what we were referencing there. But I think for like a general citizen to be able to get in and to just make sure that their case is heard, or that their opinion is heard, not their case per se, but that was very effective. And I know that, and maybe I wasn't informed enough, but I didn't realize that could be done until we were there, getting ready for this meeting yesterday. I think that people should be they should be able to get in that way. I mean, that's as far as the regular public being able to testify and to give opinions and stuff, I think that's a strong benefit. I mean, hey, I got a parking ticket, while I was down there. So, I mean, if nothing else, if I had zoomed in, at least I wouldn't have gotten a parking ticket. But the idea behind it of being able to take part in your government, I think that's fantastic. And it was readily apparent that, I mean, there are big screens inside of these rooms. It's impressive. And, when you're testifying via Zoom or something like that, you're definitely being heard. I still think you're more effective in person, because I think somebody's more likely to ask a question of a physical being standing in front of them than they are over a Zoom. And you worry, my luck, if I zoomed in, they'd have asked a question, it would have been the winner and my connection would have gone out, but,
right.
But as far as availability and access to government, I think that's, I think that's a great thing. And it looked to be effective. Sometimes being on the Zoom call gave you almost more influence, because by the time you're the 20th person who's just walking up saying, hey, I'm here and I support this bill, the Zoom person is literally bigger. I think they're probably you're about 8 feet tall when you're on that screen.
And going back to that local government meeting, virtual or meeting in person, I think Senator Stewart made a comment, and his colleagues agreed with him that they thought it was great that the public could be virtual, even in the local government meetings. They had differences of opinion about how many meetings that local governments could have where they, the supervisors or city council or town council members, would be virtual. But that was interesting. Now Chad, in addition to your work in concrete and the concrete company that you founded now about 20 years ago, you've also worked on developing an app that helps. And I'd really be interested in your talking some about that. And maybe after you describe that, we need to put the challenge out to a VMI grad about, does there need to be something created to help people in working and following things at the General Assembly? We'll go there later.
Exactly.
Yeah. But tell us about the app that you've got, and how does that help?
We did. So construction has become very litigious. I guess maybe life on Earth has become very litigious, is maybe more accurate. But construction has not been immune to that. And as a nature of it, I was coming from a much higher tech. I was in nuclear engineering and that field. So technology was a big thing for us. And when I came to construction, I was surprised at the lack of technology. And also, I had a lot of friends that were brick masons and plumbers and electricians. And in the course of their work, they were excellent at their trade, skilled in their craft, but they would run into situations where they couldn't get paid for their work. Rather, it was they didn't document it, they didn't submit the exact right paperwork. A lot of loopholes that were built in there. They lay brick. They're not lawyers, and you're going up. You're billing general contractors that are have their own legal departments. So we created an app that allowed you to very easily document through photos, because a photo is worth 1,000 words and then some. Really, for us, photos are worth thousands of dollars. And so we document lots of photos. We do time tracking and progress tracking with a field first mentality. Our idea is we target it. We know who our audience is. We try to make the app so it's in the words and in the form that they understand. And it's that and what spawned from that was the idea of, hey, we want to protect our trades so that they get paid for the work they do. And then that fed directly into the bill where we're doing. Where an owner doesn't accept something, and then a general contractor doesn't want to pay a sub for something they've done. So the more documentation you have, the stronger your case will be. We can't guarantee you'll win. We can just guarantee you have a shot.
Talk a little bit more about the bill that you were there working on, and then also about what happened toward the end of the discussion of the bill and where it stands right now. You gave testimony, other people gave testimony, but what were you trying to accomplish?
So in the state of Virginia, there's it's become ubiquitous among all general contractors, and that there's a contract term that is, or a clause that is included in almost all of our main contracts, and it's called a condition precedent term, which means this is something that only triggers if this other thing happens first. For them, it's condition precedent, and it says you will only get paid as a subcontractor, the recipient on this contract. You will only receive payment if or when the general contractor is paid by his client. And some people would, on the face of it, say, well, I guess that protects people. If you get paid, then I get paid, or when you get paid, I get paid. But the downside of it is, we don't make laws for the best of our people. People say, well, we don't really have a problem because if you're a good contractor, you would always pay your people. Well, sure. If you're an excellent citizen, we wouldn't have to have a law against murder. People just wouldn't kill each other. But, the idea is you've got to put fences around these things to protect one another. And so what ends up happening is a general contractor will do something even to the degree of a signed change order, which is where almost all of these things happen, or what the changes in contracts. And so they'll say, hey, I want you to go and patch this area in the floor. And so it's simple enough. We tell them this is how much it'll cost. They give us a signed change order. We go and we patch it. That general contractor then turns around and goes to his owner and says, hey, here's a change order for, $5,000, $1,000, $100,000, or whatever it is. And, the subcontractor, we've done the work, everything is good to go. Now the owner says, well, I don't think that patch was necessary. I don't agree with the pricing of it. I don't, any number of reasons. It can be anything. And then he says, I won't pay you for it. So now the general contractor is operating off of a commission per se. They're going to, maybe they make 10% or 20% or whatever their charge is on top of our fee. So now they're put in a position where in order to get paid, they've got to fight. They've got to convince the owner to do something. And at that point in time, they're fighting for my money. So I don't know, anybody listening knows you will fight harder for your own money than anybody will fight for your money. It's like, you would vehemently want me to not have that parking ticket, but not nearly as badly as I didn't want to have a parking ticket. And so the contractor's in there to represent his subs, and good ones do a good job of it. But what it boils down to is the general contractor directed me to do the work. I have a signed contract with him. But unless that owner agrees, which I have no interaction with the owner, most of our contracts have a do not contact clause. We can't talk directly to the owner. And so now the contractor who's been hired to do nothing but facilitate this building, that's his job to determine what's needed and what's not. Now comes back and says, hey, Chad, I'm sorry. I didn't get paid for that. Or even worse sometimes is they come back and say, hey, I could only get half the money, so I'm only going to pay you half the money. Turns out my employees are going to want all of their money. My suppliers are going to want all of their money. And on the top of all of this, I've already paid for everything. It's not like I can go back and not pay. When we do a change order, our contracts also state we have to perform that work as directed. And once it's approved. Now, everything has to be approved by a general contractor. But just because they approve it with this clause in place doesn't mean they have to pay for it. And we just found that that's not what contracts were built for. And I think in 23 or 35 other states in the country, that's the way it is. If you tell somebody to do something, you sign a contract for it, they're not allowed to say that this is precedent on somebody else paying them first.
It's law in other states. The members of the General Assembly are often influenced by that. I don't know when's the last time that Virginia passed something, and Virginia was the first state among the 50. But when, in the particular case you're talking about, I heard some reference that this is the law in North Carolina. And by the fact that it's law in North Carolina, that tends to sway legislators. I will say, in all due respect to the folks way out on the West Coast, that if California, for instance, were the only state in the nation that had a law like this, that would not tend to influence the legislators that much. They would say, oh, that's California. And some of them would say, that's great. And others would say, no, we're not going to do what California has done. But when you can point to North Carolina, you can point to Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia, Maryland, neighboring states, that really is something that helps encourage legislators to take action on something, regardless of what it is, this particular bill or other bills. So you were there, I guess, about 6 hours, and it's all, at least 5 hours or so of it's all on video that's archived, and people can watch it in the middle of the night if they're having trouble sleeping, or they can watch it at any time. And then as it ended the way, more often than not, some bills end, not with an up and down vote, but tell the viewers, how did it end?
So we ended up, I felt good. I thought had they voted, we would have gone ahead and been reported out. But I think they decided instead to kind of sit on it for a week. And I think a part of this bill has been coming up for quite a while. And it runs into a lot of opposition from general contractors and their associations. And if anybody's listening, they're thinking, well, Chad, of course you feel that way. You're a sub, but I'm not always a sub. I'm a sub, and then I have subs under me, and I could use the same pay when paid clauses with them. But to me, it's just a thing about, that's not the intent of the law. That's not an honorable way to do business. And you would also say, well, if you don't want to operate under a clause like that, Chad, don't sign one. The problem is, it's like trying to find a real estate agent who's going to charge you less than 7%. Everybody has this clause. There's no, this is the golden rule at its worst. They have the gold, they're making the rule. And we wouldn't be able to function if we only did contractors that didn't have this clause. And then I thought it was interesting. One of the clauses, they asked the general contractor, said, well, how could this hurt you? Because there was a general contractor there who was speaking. And one of the members said, well, how could this law hurt you? And the best thing he came up with is, if I direct all of these guys and I contract and hire these guys to do all this work, and my owner doesn't pay me, I could go under. Well, yes. And in the next sentence, he also said, the subs, this is a risk that they take. Well, so really it's just a passing of risk. And like I was expressing to Senator Locke, if you're talking about small businesses, which tend to be more of the minority and women-owned businesses as well, this is a critical issue, because the smaller you are, the bigger the hit hurts. So, can a general contractor, be held responsible? I mean, they're actively making these decisions. They should be accountable for them. And the same thing, I mean, it's one thing, I'm a size contractor. I've had it done to me, and it happened to me for $11,000 just yesterday. But $11,000, we're going to be okay. We're probably going to work it out. But had that been, $150,000, that could be enough to really put a damper on our business. But think about a 2-man tile shop. It could happen to him the same way. And, $11,000 could have been the end of their business.
Chad, we want our viewers to know that already the General Assembly has had about almost 1/3 of their 60 days. It's flying. That includes the Saturdays and Sundays, even those days when they're not in session. And so whatever issue someone out there is really interested in, passionate about, concerned about, frustrated about, whatever it is, they need to contact their legislators right away, because by the middle of February, bills will either have passed from one chamber to the next, or they will have died for the year until next January of 23. And so there's not that much time between the middle of now and the middle of February, and then it flies after that, after what's called crossover, and moving on toward the 12th of March, when the session will end. Anyone, whether they're in the greater Richmond area in Southwest Virginia, Eastern Shore, wherever they are, or if they're in Northern Virginia, and maybe get the idea that things move rather slowly like they do sometimes in Washington, I'm told, and I see, they move fast. This bill and other bills get carried over for a week, but it'll come back next week, and there will be, I feel sure, an up or a down vote. And if it's an up vote, then it moves to the chamber, then it moves over to the other chamber, and things move very quickly. So what's the expression? If you snooze, you lose. It certainly can happen.
Absolutely. I think it's a fine example. My wife and I refer to it when we're talking about parenting. They're long days and short years. So for this, it's probably very long days and short weeks.
Mm-hmm. It will move quickly. Well, Chad, I very much appreciate your being on This Week in Virginia. I know you have your podcast, and you try to get word out to people on a variety of issues, and they can follow you there. And we appreciate your work. I think that what I witnessed yesterday is what I have seen from time to time. Don't always see it. Regret that I don't always see it, but really the best in citizen advocacy of someone who comes respectfully, speaking to the General Assembly. I mean, speaking, you might say, from the heart as well as from the head and from experience. And great job. I don't know if that goes back to life on the farm or life at VMI or life in business for the last couple of decades, or parenting children, or where it comes from. But I think it's a good model of how to relate to legislators, to respect them. Hardly a day goes by, but when I see someone really speaking disrespectfully to legislators, and they're human beings just like you and I, and it doesn't help the issue.
Yeah, I don't think you've ever, we have a couple of things we tell our kids. It's like if you're trying to make your point and you find that you're yelling, you're definitely not making your point. And nobody ever calmed down because you told them to. So you try to send them out with that kind of knowledge.
Right.
So it's difficult.
Right. Well, Chad Gill, we thank you. I'd say Citizen Chad, and that's my nickname for you for now. And thank you for being on This Week in Virginia. And I think that whether the viewers have any interest at all in the issue that you're talking about, you have illustrated the process, what needs to happen and what does happen, and the value of speaking up. You could have been doing work in your own businesses. You could have been doing other things, but you took the time to be here. And I think it helps the process.
It does. And then hopefully it makes a difference. I mean, what is that? I would say this year, a few parents speaking up in Loudoun County changed the whole state. So I gotta think that, if we can change one bill at a time, it probably is worth the effort.
Chad Gill, thank you. This is David Bailey signing off for This Week in Virginia, and we look forward to being with our viewers soon on another subject, but watch this one and watch it twice and learn from it. Thank you.